Now then, welcome to another video. This video is all about my 2005 Toyota MR2, which I built this year to be a Ringtool, a vehicle that I can battle around the Nordschleife with and learn the track more intimately. I've been coming to the Nürburgring for more than 10 years now, but this year I've done more laps in this car than all those previous years combined. I was coming casually before, but this year I wanted to really learn the track, and this is the car I chose to do that. So I did a few videos building this car earlier in the year, but as the years progressed, I've had questions from people asking specifics about the car, and as the year's coming to an end now, I thought it'd be good just to make a video all about the car itself. So that's this video, and there'll be chapters in, so you can skip ahead. So if you only want to know about the wheels or the data logging stuff that I've got going on or anything, you'll be able to find that. So let's just start firstly with why I picked an MR2. I've had MR2s now since 2018. I had a K-swapped one which got me into them. I was into Hondas previously, and I managed to pick up an MR2 with that engine, and since then I've been involved in racing these cars, so I know them quite well. And I actually bought this car with the intention to race it. This was a Copart special. I paid around £900 for it. For a 55 plate with 75,000 miles, that's a pretty good deal. Obviously I've put a lot more into it since then, money-wise, and I'll perhaps put a brief summary in the description of the parts and what they've cost and stuff. But yeah, I think the car in total probably owes me maybe 6,000 or 7,000 all in. A lot of the parts that are on the car came from my race car, and I've been a bit limited from that, which I'll explain more in detail once we start going through the parts. But let's start with the exterior. I get a lot of questions all the time. My most common perhaps question is what wheel size and tyre size. So I've got a few different options for the MR2. Currently the front wheel is a 7.5 inch wide ultralight F1. It's obviously an RPF1 replica. I know. It's 7.5 inch wide wheel, 15 inch diameter, and the tyre is a 205/50/15 Yokohama AO52. I think the offset is 35. I think it's ET35. But I do have a little bit of scrubbing. Even at this ride height, I still get a little bit of scrubbing, and also the front sometimes catches, but doesn't look like it has been doing recently with this ride height. There's a little bumper tab there, which does get some action sometimes, and that's because I've got more caster, but I'll tell you more about that on the suspension. The rear wheel is 8 inch wide, again 15 inch diameter. This is a Group B Unlimited, which is a company from America, I believe. It's quite a nice wheel, yeah, it's 15/8, like I say, so it's a bit wider than what's on front, and it's also got a wider rear tyre, which is a 225/50/15. The offset on this is 38, I'm pretty sure, so around mid-30s on both the front and rear offsets. The rear does also catch a little bit, not so much at this ride height. With my camber, I'm running more camber than what most may do. We'll touch on that when we get the suspension, but yeah, I don't actually have many real concerns about fitment. I've also got another set of 8 inch rear wheels, which have the same tyre size and a similar offset. So sticking around that offset seems fine. I've also got a smaller set of front wheels. I'm not sure whether or not I prefer a 195 tyre or a 205 tyre on the front. Definitely like the 225 on the rear, and I definitely don't want to put 225 all the way around. Some people do that and they really like it, but it's not for me. The car is pointy enough with the mechanical grip it's got. These are obviously really rear biased when it comes to weight distribution, and having the same size tyre front and rear, it doesn't suit my driving style, and I don't think it's the fastest way to get around a circuit, in my opinion. The suspension that's on the car is very basic BC racing, and we've got poly bushers pretty much everywhere where there was once rubber bushers. This is suspension carried along from my race car. When I was doing the MR2 series, we were only allowed certain mods such as the BC coilovers and such as the poly bushers, and I just copy and pasted that from my race car because I already had most of the parts. There's definitely scope for some better suspension on this car. This is not the most compliant setup at all, and it does get a bit hairy with the bumps on the circuit here. You may notice the ride height is slightly higher at the front than what it is at the rear. We've got the sports rate going. This is very typical of a mid-engined car, a mid-engined race car, or even just a normal road car where you would have a lower ride height at the rear. This car is rear bias anyway, and a little bit more ride height at the front allows the front tyres, there's a little bit more to it, but the simple science is that a little bit more ride height here should give the front more grip. If I was to lower the front, then I would probably get more understeer mid-corner turning, it would not feel so good. I'm really happy with what I've got. I've also modified the BCs slightly. We've got helper springs front and rear just to get a little bit more travel, a little bit more droop when the wheel is unloaded. That made a huge difference to the way the car felt. And yeah, I don't think the poly bushers are optimal. Poly bushers, like I say, were in the regulations for the race series. We weren't allowed to put spherical joints or Heim joints, however you want to say it. I would really like to do this car again with spherical joints rather than poly bushers, because I think they are the culprit of a lot of the uneasy handling that this car has when it hits a small bump. I do have Billy Basic coilovers, yes, but I think the poly bushers are also causing. I think the poly bushers are causing most of the problems, to be honest. Oh, and the wheel alignment, I've got about 3.5 degrees of camber on the front and just less than that on the rear, unfortunately. I don't have the most adjustability because I removed the camber bolts before coming here, and I've also rotated the top plate on the front 120 degrees to give you more caster. So this front wheel is sitting further forward in the arch to what a regular MR2 would do. That makes the steering a little bit sharper, and there's some other science that goes on which is making that a good idea. But what that means is that I don't get the most adjustability on the camber. I just max it off on the slot, on the BCs, on the top bolt, and yeah, call it done. So it's about 3.5 degrees on the front, just less than that on the rear, still over 3. And then my toe, I've got a little bit of toe in on the rear, and I have it straight at the front, parallel at the front. I'm not running toe in or toe out on the front wheels. The engine on this car is the stock 1ZZ FE. They make about 130, I think the book figures 138 horsepower. This engine has 144 measured on Dark Side's dyno. There's a couple of little changes from stock, but the engine itself is original. We've got an aftermarket air filter set up. I'm currently running a hybrid racing air filter and a little enclosure that I've made myself. This is again another thing that I copy and pasted from my race car. We weren't allowed to put the air filter outside of the engine bay. Now, I may look in the future to try and get that air filter outside of the engine bay into the side duct, but for now, that works pretty well. And my intake air temperatures are not much more than ambient, so it works really well despite being an open cone filter. And then the exhaust system is a Toyo Sports manifold, which is a super cheap eBay jobby, but it's been absolutely fine. And then we've got a custom 2.5-inch system, which Josh from HCR made me a few years ago. And I do have a sports cat as well. The gearbox, which seems to be currently venting, is a 5-speed from a JDM, a Japanese import, which has shorter ratios to the UK cars, but this is fitted with the LSD from the UK and Europe cars. It's a helical LSD from Toyota. I did start the year with a 6-speed gearbox from a Corolla T-Sport, and I had a Cars plated LSD. Unfortunately, that didn't last very long at all. I think I got about 60, 70 laps out of that gearbox. But my top speed is higher with this gearbox, but I'm slower over a lap because having a longer ratio gearbox, you know, I'm slower everywhere. I'm slightly faster in a couple of areas, getting a couple more miles per hour out of this gearbox, but every other exiting corner, whatever, is slower. Oh, and the Cars LSD compared to the OEM Toyota one is quite a big difference, bigger than what I thought it would be. It's definitely better than an open LSD, I guess, but it's still kind of suboptimal, and compared to the Cars, well, there's just no comparison really. The Cars 1.5 way clutch LSD was so much better. The only other mod that I've made to the engine is I've got an oil cooler which is fitted into the driver's side duct. This is a 16 row 230mm, I believe, but I will confirm that in the description. So as you can see, the exterior of the car is pretty stock other than the wheels and the sun strip. I would have liked to have a lip on the front and maybe some side skirts and stuff in the future. I'm not really thinking about aero. I get comments a lot asking if I'm going to put a wing on it or a splitter on it. At the minute, I don't think the car would benefit from it. I don't think I'm going fast enough to really have the needs. I mean, I could be proven wrong because aero in theory would gain me a lot of time in a lot of places, but the fast corners here, I'm pretty much flat out anyway, so I can't see that I would have any advantage with a wing there. But maybe it's something we can try in the future, but it's not something that I'm really that excited about. A flat floor is interesting. That's something that I am interested in, maybe having a flat floor, because that should just gain performance everywhere without any negatives really, other than, you know, smacking it on the floor and losing it. But I've still retained the storage bin in the front. Unfortunately, I couldn't keep the plastic trim that goes round. As I said, this was a Copart car and the front end is not quite straight. You can probably tell by the way the bonnet lines are when I put the bonnet back down. But in here, I normally keep my helmet. I went karting last night, so it's not there. I didn't win, never mind. But I keep some oil in here. I keep my warning triangle, you know, German road safety stuff, a jacket or whatever. And normally on the road cars, they have a plastic trim which covers all this, but yeah, we don't have that. The brakes are still the factory Toyota calipers, front and rear. The only difference is that I've got braided steel brake lines from Hell Performance, and I've also got Dixel Z-type pads and Dixel discs as well. The Z-type pads are a very good fast road pad. The Nürburgring is the ultimate fast road, you could say, right? These pads don't squeal or make any noise on the road, and yeah, they've given me adequate performance. The only thing they don't give me is the life that you might get with a more aggressive pad like an RA type or an RE, or, you know, Dixel do loads of different pads. This is their kind of entry-level fast road pad, which is really good for sprint racing and really good for cold performance once you get onto the Nordschleife, so you can trust the brakes straight away. Pad life, I'm getting about 70 or 80 laps out of a set of pads. Not too bad. I think in MR2 racing terms, that's between 30 and 40 MR2 races on a set of pads. So obviously very different circumstances, and the Nürburgring isn't that hard on brakes, to be fair, compared to a lot of circuits in the UK. It's kind of easy on brakes. The only thing that I have issues with on the brakes, and it's kind of a big one, is that the ABS does get pretty trigger happy and likes to kick in. There's a couple of corners here where I can't brake confidently. I have to kind of brake early and gently, otherwise the ABS system will go into ice mode where the pedal goes rock solid, and it's a really uneasy feeling. So I'm definitely losing some time there on the brakes in a couple of corners, but it is what it is. You may have seen in some previous videos that I've raced these in the past without ABS, and you can just disable the factory ABS, but the bias proportioning's not ideal at all. It would be nice to have the ABS completely deleted properly, maybe with a you know, an aftermarket pedal system and stuff like that, or even an aftermarket ABS system. Maybe get something from a BMW, an MK60 or something like that, and have a proper ABS system. But yeah, this one is limited, but it has also saved me a couple of times, so swings and roundabouts. All right, let's talk about the interior then. So I spent a lot of time making the interior place that was functional, somewhat nice to be. You know, it's no BMW 5 Series from 2005, is it? But it is a relatively nice place to be. I've still got some creature comforts, but ultimately it's got the performance in mind of a Ringtool. So the steering wheel is a 300mm Momo, although it measures 290, so I'm not sure. Does it actually measure 280? I'm not sure. I'll measure it and put it in the description, but the actual model number is, I'll put that in the description too, I can't remember. It's a very old wheel, and I had to get like a little adapter kit to get the horn button to fit, but I really like this wheel. I've had it a long time in my MR2 race car as well, and it's small enough to make the car feel nice and nimble on circuit without being ridiculous, but also with this 3-inch spacer, gives my knees enough room so that when I'm heeling towing, I'm not hitting the steering wheel. This seat is a Recaro SPG. It's a Japanese model, which means it's probably a little bit smaller than what it could be or what it should be. This seat I've had for a long time. I bought it for my Integra a long time ago. I've got a pair of them, and this car did originally have red seats. That's why it's got the red door cards too. And yeah, I thought it'd be nice to have a red seat in it. I did actually have to cut the harness bar away from this roll cage to get the seat far back enough so that I was comfortable, but yeah, I managed to get there in the end. Harnesses, these are Schroff 6-point harnesses. These are the ones with the 2-inch shoulder belt so that it's a bit more comfortable when wearing a hands device, which is actually something you're not allowed to do on tourist days, but when I'm on track days, I do wear my hands device, and that just makes it a little bit more comfortable. But these are pretty good harnesses. The lap belt does have a bit of a problem with coming loose sometimes over time. Not horrendously so, but I mean, there's not many lap belts out there which don't have that problem, unfortunately. The roll cage is from a company called Protection and Performance, which are unfortunately no longer with us. They're no longer trading. I've had a lot of comments about the roll cage over the years. This was the spec roll cage for the championship that I used to race in. It again came from my race car. It's a 6-point and it's got this bar across the top, etc. It's got 2 bars at the front, which is a little bit strange. You don't always see that. One of the most common questions I get about the roll cage is whether or not you can run factory seat belts with it, which you can, but I had to make a little bracket for that to happen. But it has some hooks here, which I think are designed for the factory seat belt mechanism, which I threw away. But as I say, you can't actually buy this roll cage anymore, unfortunately. The rest of the interior, obviously there's no passenger seat, but I have kept carpets in just to try and make it feel a little bit nice in here. And I've tried to keep trim where I can, such as up here, and we've even still got an interior light which does work, although it's very dim. I should have put a better bulb in there. No, not an LED. We don't do LED interior lights. Well, you can if you want, but I think they're just bad. And I've also got up here, you can't quite see, would be my foot cam. And foot cams are normally quite dark, right? Which is why I have a switch here which turns the lights on. So yeah, I fitted some LED lights down there just to make the foot cam a little bit easier to see, and it's definitely made a very positive impact on my videos. Well, you can if you want, but I think they're just bad. The rest of the interior then, we've got power for cameras. So my camera setup, I've usually 3 GoPros on average, 1 behind, 1 for the feet, and 1 either on my helmet or like a vanity camera. And the foot cam and the main camera have direct power, which is something that I didn't used to advise in the past, but the more modern GoPros seem a lot happier doing that, and I'm recording at a lower frame rate these days, 4K 25, thanks to Misha for the tip on that one. So the GoPros are recording less data and they're able to take the charge at the same time, and they don't seem to overheat. I've not actually had a single GoPro overheating problem all year in this car, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. I also get quite a few comments about this shift knob. This is a Quaife replica. It's just a nylon teardrop style, I guess you could call it. These are quite hard to get because of the Toyota thread. I think it's being, there's a rally thing on this weekend, so loads of rally cars going by. The Toyota thread pitch is quite unique to Toyota, and there was a company in the UK making these. I don't know if they still are. This again came from my race car. I've kept the factory boot in this car because I removed this on my race car, and the amount of dirt which ends up getting into the ball and socket down here, it's just not worth it. So keep the boot on, and that keeps everything nice, and it looks a bit better as well. The handbrake doesn't work. The handbrake doesn't work. I need to fix that for the MOT next year, but these cars, this is just shit. That's the only word for it, unfortunately. I've still got electric windows, I've still got the factory cup holders, and yeah, obviously there's other things going on with sensors and data logging. We'll go more into detail about that in the moment. I've still got the glove box working, although with the roll cage coming down here, it actually works its way into where the blower motor is for the heaters, which has to be kind of sandwiched across, and it makes the glove box a little bit smaller than what it could be, but it is still there, and as you can see, I'm keeping cloths and hats in there. There's also my battery mounted on the inside. This is a deadweight Togue 200, Togue. I'm still not sure how to say that word, but this is a battery weighing less than 2 kilos. You'll also see that I've cut holes in the door cards. I kept the original factory door cards, and just very, they look better in the dark, but it works, and I can close the door with the factory door cards. Quite a lot of MR2 people will get rid of the door cards to get a little bit more shoulder room, which is a problem that I did have in the past, but I think now that I've got this seat further back and the smaller steering wheel, I don't need it. But quite a lot of people have the issue where they're hitting their elbows there, but because my elbows, I'm further back, I don't have that problem at all. So it's nice to keep the factory door cards with the speakers. Right, let's talk now about the data logging, in-car entertainment and gauges, right? This is something that I spent a lot of time on, and I was really happy with the way it came out. So we've got these 3 AEM gauges: air fuel ratio, oil temperature, and oil pressure. Okay, and then we've got this head unit here, this stereo, which is an Toyota X10, and it's an Android head unit, but it's one of the latest ones. It's really responsive, and I use this primarily as my data logger, but it also does Apple CarPlay and all the usual modern things. Now, as a data logger, there's a few different sources of information that I'm feeding it. So I'm getting the data from these gauges, the 0 to 5 signal output, and I'll tell you more about how I get that in a moment. I'm also getting OBD data from this OBD Link LX, a little Bluetooth device which has good functionality with the Toyota and with Race Chrono. And then the third crucial information is the GPS speed, which I've got a 10 Hertz GPS receiver which is mounted to the dashboard. So that gets GPS information about my position 10 times a second. Whilst that's booting up, how am I getting data from these gauges into that head unit? Well, I'm doing it over Bluetooth, but I'm having to go in a bit of a roundabout fashion. So these gauges have a 0 to 5 signal output, which is used to feed into data loggers or dashboards or other things. So the information that's coming from the sensors that are in the back of the car is being displayed on these gauges, but you can also send that information to another auxiliary device. And in this case, we're sending it to a little computer which lives up here. If I can just open it up. So in this very nice looking whisker box, which is mounted to where my passenger airbag would have been, is a little Adafruit itsy bitsy computer. So it's a little tiny computer similar to a Arduino, etc., if you're familiar with computers. And that takes the 0 to 5 signal output. Well, first of all, it goes through a voltage divider, and it turns that voltage down into 0 to 3.3, I think, which is safe for the board. And then there's some logic going on and some code going on in the computer, which then calculates that to a value and sends it to Race Chrono. So you might have noticed when the head unit started up, it went immediately into Race Chrono. That's something that I've configured. And in here, we've got those 3 basic sensors always enabled. I've also got a heart rate monitor that I sometimes wear. For the most part of this year, I've just stuck to those 3 main sources of information: GPS, OBD, and then the additional information from these gauges, which actually comes through as CAN information, but I don't think it quite is that. Just a small tangent, I also ended up making an O2 sensor simulator out of one of these boards, which you can see hidden behind my passenger side tail light. When I fitted the AFR probe in the end of the exhaust, I lost one of my O2 sensors and I was getting a check engine light. And there was a few ways around that, but this was a nice, tidy way of doing it. And I did do a write-up, which I can send you if you're interested. So what I would normally do, I'm going to a session, I would either go start to create a new one, I would go into one of my existing sessions, and then hit resume. But from this existing session, these are the laps that I've been doing over the past couple of weekends. But what I've also done on my computer at home is that I've got an Android emulator running on my computer, so I can export this data and then I can review it at home on the computer as well. This app is an Android app. There is an iPhone version as well, but I don't think it's got quite as much functionality as the Android version. But this does also have CarPlay and everything else you'd expect.
Cause if you would have seen what I was saying, said she want my kids and help me make my next G. Tell me I ain't finesse. Yeah, it's funny how time flies. Said it was almost 1.
Oh yeah, I do also have some cameras recording all the time from the head unit, which is pretty cool. Although don't tell the Germans about this because they get a bit funny about their privacy. All right, so hopefully that covers everything that you wanted to know about my MR2. If I've missed anything or you want to know more about anything, leave a comment, and like I say, I'll try and get back to all of the comments. Don't send me a DM though, no DMs. Put it in the comments and then everyone can see it and I get more engagement. Hurrah, yeah? Hurrah for the comments. I don't know what the future plans are for this car, whether I'll put a faster engine in it or try and develop suspension a little bit more. I would really like to go under 8 minutes BTG with the standard engine, and if I don't do that this year, then I don't think I'm going to rush into changing the engine to something more powerful. That would obviously be a much easier way of getting it under 8 minutes, but where's the fun in that? Although with that said, this 1ZZ that's in here does have a bit of an oil drinking problem, so maybe it will maybe it will decide when it's time to swap the engine. But yeah, that's all for now, so thanks for watching. And yeah, the next video is going to be a vlog about my attempts, my final attempts to get this car under 8 minutes, which is a vlog over 3 weekends, including the weekend that's to come. So I don't know whether or not I've been successful or not. Hopefully, because it would be nice to put this one to bed. Next year I'll be visiting the Nürburgring again, but in a variety of different cars, so follow along for that.